Horror story: The Unfortunate Woman. My hometown is in the mountainous area with very remote and backward transportation. I usually only go back once every year or two. This incident happened in 2016. Eldest sister, everything is packed. Let's hit the road soon. That time, I went back to visit my family during the holiday while my sister stayed at home. That day, my mom asked her to bring some things to my aunt. "Mom, I might not be able to come back tonight. What about Key Grandma? Because it's quite far. My sister was worried about not being able to come back at night. So she mentioned Key Grandma. You go ahead. Let the youngest sister stay overnight at Key Grandma's place. We have a good relationship with Key Grandma. She should be from my grandfather's generation and somehow related to Key Grandpa. Key Grandma is old and gets scared when alone at night, so my sister often keeps her company at night. My sister couldn't go that time, so my mom arranged for me to go instead. Before my sister left, she pulled me aside. Let me tell you, youngest sister, Key Grandma has a peculiar personality and says some strange things. You need to be mentally prepared. She explained some things to me, and it was a bit mysterious. I've heard about it. You should go now. Don't worry. I felt that my sister shouldn't always stay in the mountains. She's young and a bit nervous. Lock the doors and windows at night. Remember, be careful on the way. My sister walked quite far away and kept reminding me. We have dinner relatively late. It's already dark outside when we start eating. Youngest sister, finish your meal quickly and don't keep Key Grandma waiting. My mom asked me to eat quickly and not make Key Grandma anxious by being late. Both her sons passed away. Doesn't she have a daughter-in-law? Why doesn't she go and accompany her? Our ancestors had a closer relationship with Key Grandma's family, but it became distant by our generation. I only knew that both her sons died of illness, and there was a daughter-in-law taking care of two children. Their relationship as mother-in-law and daughter-in-law is not good, and they don't interact. The daughter-in-law probably wishes for her to die soon, so she can inherit the house. Originally, the daughter-in-law should live with her, but their relationship is not good, and there are disputes over inheritance. That daughter-in-law is really despicable. She's so wicked. Don't speak ill of others. Hurry up and finish your meal so you can go. After finishing dinner, I left the house and headed towards Key Grandma's place. Her house is on the edge of the village. Key Grandma, are you home? It's youngest sister here to accompany you. I could see from a distance that her house was not lit, so I knocked on her door to see if she was home. After a few knocks, no one answered. I tried pushing the door, and it wasn't locked, so I entered. Key Grandma, are you home? It had been several years since we last met, and I didn't know if she was home or not, so I continued calling her. The yard was dark, and there were no lights, making me a bit nervous. I thought of going inside to see if she was asleep or something. Who are you? Just as I reached out to push the door, an elderly voice appeared next to me, startling me. Key Grandma, it's me, the youngest sister. I've come to accompany you. It was Key Grandma who spoke. She seemed to have poor eyesight and didn't recognize me at first. It's the youngest sister you've returned. Come inside. After she recognized me, she asked me to come inside with her. Why don't you turn on the lights? There were no lights on in the house. Turning on lights consumes electricity. Let's save some if we can. She said it was to save electricity. They didn't even have a television in their house. They went to bed early, and I noticed that she quickly fell asleep. I'm used to staying up late. If I can't sleep, I play with my phone. Around 11 o'clock at night, I suddenly heard a man's voice outside the window. He called out, "Mom," but the voice sounded weak and eerie, like something from a horror movie. "Mom." I thought I misheard it, but I sat up in bed. There were two more calls from outside the window, and this time I heard them clearly. It was a voice that sounded sickly. "Key Grandma, it seems like someone is outside." Key Grandma. I was terrified at that moment, and immediately remembered Key Grandma's two deceased sons. I hurriedly went to call Key Grandma. I pushed her a few times, but she didn't react. That's when I realized. She was awake, pretending to be asleep, pretending not to hear. Mom. Mom. I had never encountered such a situation before, so I hid under the covers, pretending not to hear. But the voice outside kept calling for Mom. Why do you keep coming back even after death? Grandma suddenly shouted loudly, and the noise outside stopped. I fell into a drowsy state and didn't know what time I fell asleep. When I woke up the next morning, Key Grandma had already gotten up and was no longer in the house. I put on my clothes and wanted to go home. As soon as I stepped out, I saw her coming out of the storage shed. Grandma, I'm going back. I wanted to greet her and let her know that I was going back. Go ahead, go ahead. She responded indifferently and went back inside. I felt a bit upset and thought that I wouldn't come to keep you company at night anymore. I glanced at the storage shed and wondered what she was always doing there. I wanted to go and see for myself. I opened the door slightly and peeked inside. The things inside the room startled me. On an altar table, there were 3 memorial photos. They were of Key Grandpa and his 2 sons. As I was looking, it seemed like I heard a voice from the photo of the youngest son calling out for Mom. I was scared, so I quickly ran back home. Mom, how did Key Grandma's sons die? After returning home, I asked my mom in detail about how Key Grandma's sons died. They didn't have money for treatment. They wasted away. My mom sighed and said that their family had a tough time. Key Grandpa and his 2 sons all died from tuberculosis. By the time it was the youngest son's turn, they had borrowed all the money they could, and they couldn't afford further treatment. They could only wait at home until their death. Originally, my sister was supposed to come back that day, but something came up, so I had to go and keep Key Grandma company at night. If you're afraid, just stay at home. I'll go. I told my mom about what happened the previous night, and she wanted to go in my place. However, considering other matters at home, I didn't let her go. It wasn't even dark yet when I went over. Key Grandma, I'm here. When I entered the house, Key Grandma was having her meal. I finished eating. Little sister has come. Have you eaten? Seeing me entering the house, she greeted me with a smile. Is this all you eat every day? I glanced at the table, where she was eating white rice with a dish of pickles. I need to eat frugally to repay the debts. She said it was to save money and repay the debts incurred when her son was ill. After she finished her meal, it was already dark, and surprisingly, she turned on the lights. Little sister, you know how to read and calculate. Help me count how much money is here. Then she brought out a cardboard box and asked me to help her calculate the money. After she finished speaking, she opened the lid of the box and poured all the money onto the table. Although there was a large pile, they were all 10 yuan, 5 yuan, and 1 yuan bills. There were only a few 100 yuan bills, and every bill was crumpled. It seemed like she had been saving for a long time. I helped her flatten and stack the money, 1 bill at a time. While she told me that it was all her hard-earned savings, she calculated that it should be enough to repay the debts. I used my phone to calculate the amount of money and recorded it in a notebook. Key Grandma had a ledger where she recorded every loan she took from the villagers. From the records, it was clear that she had been slowly repaying the debts over the years. Key Grandma, it's all paid off, and there's some left. After calculating the money, I realized that after repaying the debts, there was still a small surplus. Finally, it's all paid off. Key Grandma, rare to see a smile on her face, let out a long sigh of relief. My second son always blamed me for not raising enough money for his treatment. That night, Key Grandma shared many things with me. He died when he was only in his 30s. He resented me and wanted me to join him. She said that if they had money for medical treatment, her youngest son might not have died. Her youngest son had always blamed her. I also wanted to go with them, but I have to repay the debts. I can't die and leave others burdened. She also wanted to die and be relieved, but she couldn't leave debts unpaid and go die. Mom came. I don't know when I fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I heard her son calling from outside the window again, and Key Grandma responded. Then there was silence. The next morning, when I woke up, Key Grandma wasn't on the heated brick bed. I dressed and prepared to go home. I noticed that the door of the storage room was slightly open, and Key Grandma should be inside. Key Grandma. I intended to greet her. Key Grandma. I called twice, but there was no response. As I pushed the door open, I saw Key Grandma slumped next to the altar table, lifeless. After Key Grandma's death, her daughter-in-law found the money Key Grandma had saved to repay her debts, but didn't return a single cent to the creditors. She burned all of Key Grandma's belongings in the nearby woods and moved into Key Grandma's house. Later, I heard that every night she would turn on all the lights before going to sleep. She said she always heard Key Grandma calling her from outside the window.